And today we will start from the structure called endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum, let's start formally from the next structure. Please, I'm sorry if you feel a little bit boring, but just try to understand that how complex things are there in the cell, how nature has placed these wonderful machineries right within the territory of a small thing which we know as the cells. So the next structure we will be studying, that is about the endoplasmic reticulum. Remember, endoplasmic reticulums are like channels. They are like pathways. They are like channels present within the cytoplasm. So this is the cell. If you can see, this is the cell. So it is present within the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is the place between the nucleus and the cell membrane. So between the nucleus and the cell membrane, everything is called as the cytoplasm. And cytoplasm is carrying most of the organelles, and one of the organelle is called as endoplasmic reticulum. It is more or less like the channels. So if they look like a channels, things can move and pass through these channels from one place to another. It's like a maze. It looks like a maze. So the things can travel and can pass through these channels. So it can be used to transfer material from one part of the cell to the other part of the cell. So endoplasmic reticulums can be used to mobilize material, to transfer material from one part of the cell to another. That's one thing you need to know. They are membranes mainly. So that means their structure is also made up of the same things. You can recall, their structure is made up of lipids and the proteins. This is the same structure like the structure of the membrane. Endoplasmic reticulums are of two types. There are two types of endoplasmic reticulums, or ER, present within the cells. The one you can see with the dots. The one type of endoplasmic reticulum is the endoplasmic reticulum with the dots on it. Can you see the dots? These small dots are the ribosomes. These small dots and structures, they are the ribosomes. The job of the ribosome is to produce, is to create, is to synthesize proteins. And the process is called as translation. Because of the job of the ribosome is to create proteins, whatever the proteins they are creating, it pours into the endoplasmic reticulum. And from there, it can be transported from one part of the cell to another, or it can be transported to outside the cell. It can be exported to the other cells. It can be exported outside the cell as well. So all those endoplasmic reticulums which are carrying the ribosomes, they look like a dot. So they are called as rough endoplasmic reticulum. The other endoplasmic reticulums are the ones, they are channels without ribosomes. It's very easy, just without ribosomes. If the endoplasmic reticulum is without ribosome, that means this is called as the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Their job is just to transport material. But for the rough endoplasmic reticulum, you can refer that they are part of the protein synthesis mechanism, because ribosomes are creating proteins and endoplasmic reticulums are transporting that protein to other parts of the cells. So these are the functions and the things you need to know about the ribosomes, the network of channels within the cells. Okay, they look like this. Can you see the channels? They are endoplasmic. Membranous structures look like channels present within the cytoplasm. So we can expect that their job is to transport material from one part of the cells to another. The next, the very famous one, is called as the mitochondria. Mitochondria is more famously known as the powerhouse of the cell. It is like the power grid station. It's like a dam, not the dam, D-A-M-N, no, other dam, which is used to produce electricity. It acts like a place from where energy is synthesized, energy is created. So the job of the mitochondria is to produce energy. So that is why it is referred as the powerhouse of the cell. It's a membranous bounded structure like the endoplasmic reticulum. So you can guess if a structure, if an organelle is made up of membrane, that means that organelle will only present in the eukaryotic cells, because the membranous bounded structures are only present in the eukaryotic cells. Endoplasmic reticulum present in the eukaryotic cells. Mitochondria is only present in the eukaryotic cells. And the job of the mitochondria is to produce energy. It is made up of two membranes, the inner membrane and the outer membrane. I will show you. So it is a double membranous structure. If you can recall,
शाबाश जी आमना, आप ऑर्गेनेल्स बता रहे हैं, माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया एंड एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम, ये सारी हमारे साइटोप्लाज्म में है, राइट? तो आप साइटोप्लाज्म की ऑर्गेनेल्स बता रहे हैं.
बिल्कुल सही. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. So mitochondria is a double membranous structure. That means, if you can recall, there was another organelle which you studied, which is surrounded by the double membrane, and that was the nucleus. This one is another one after the nucleus. So it's a double membranous structure. The job is to produce energy. How mitochondria can produce energy? I have talked about it earlier. This is called as the respiration, the process of respiration. It consumes sugar or glucose, if you remember. It breaks down the glucose with the help of oxygen and produce carbon dioxide gas and water and energy. Whatever the energy is produced within the mitochondria, it is converted into a molecule called as adenosine triphosphate or ATP. ATP is like a currency. It's like an energy currency which is universally produced by the living systems. So whenever the energy is produced, it is converted into the ATP, and the ATP molecule can travel within the cells and outside the cell, and that ATP can be used to produce the function wherever it is required. So when a cell wants to execute a function and that function requires energy, the cell uses ATP. So whatever we are eating through the food, it is either utilized to produce energy or ATP, or it is used to create molecules to build our structures. So that is the purpose of the food. Mitochondria are quite big in size. Almost they are equal to the size of bacteria. And mitochondria have their own DNA and ribosomes. It's very important information about mitochondria. What that means? That means mitochondria is almost acting like an independent organelle. They have their own DNA, they have their own ribosomes, means whatever the proteins, whatever the enzymes the mitochondria requires to execute its function is synthesized within the mitochondria. That's very important. If you ask me that mitochondria is doing such a great function, I mean it's producing energy. Without energy, no life, no metabolic chemical reaction. So nature has given the chance, it has given the DNA and the ribosomes to the mitochondria so that they can synthesize whatever the enzymes they need. They should not depend on the nucleus for their function, because the other organelles, they depend on nucleus for their function. But mitochondria has its own DNA, it has its own ribosome, so they can synthesize and prepare their own, enzymes, and they can execute the function without having any dependency on the nucleus. It's a very special thing. That is why they can divide independently as well. So when the cell divides, the mitochondria divides as well. Ji, Amna, apne haath, you have your hand. Please ask your question, and I will explain the structure once again with the help of the picture.
Yeah, sir. सर आपने आंसर बता दिया मुझे कि मैंने ये पूछना था कि वो एक न्यूक्लियस की तरह रिएक्ट करता है ना, और न्यूक्लियस में सर राइबोसोम भी होता है और डीएनए भी होता है, राइट?
न्यूक्लियस में न्यूक्लिक एसिड्स होते हैं, डीएनए होता है. न्यूक्लियस creates messenger RNA, and that messenger RNA goes into the cytoplasm where they can create the proteins, क्योंकि राइबोसोम साइटोप्लाज्म में होते हैं
जी. और सर फिर
they can create their proteins and they can execute their function.
ओके सर. तो फिर या सर, लेकिन सर देखें जो हमारा क्या है माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया है वो उसके अंदर राइबोसोम, मुझे सर न्यूक्लियस और माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया फिर उनका डिफरेंस बता दें मुझे.
There are hell of the difference between, they are two different organelles. Mitochondria is not a nucleus. You phrase that it looks like a nucleus, and I somehow agree that because it is present, it contains the DNA, somehow it is, but it's not a nucleus. It is not controlling the function of the other things. The mitochondria is doing some very important, critically important functions. So that is why the nature has given the mitochondria, their own DNA. So they do not, no longer depends on the nucleus for their function. So what that means, even the nucleus is not supporting the mitochondria, mitochondria can execute its own function. And what is the function of mitochondria? You know, to produce energy.
Produce energy, exactly.
In order to produce energy, mitochondria needs several enzymes. Mitochondria needs several proteins. Since mitochondria cannot take a break, since mitochondria cannot stop its function, mitochondria is supposed to execute its function without any break. So if they are run short of a protein and an enzyme, they will not look towards the nucleus for the supplies. They can use their own DNA, and that DNA can create the proteins with the help of the ribosomes present there, so that they can execute the seamless functions. Okay, we have more hands. जी तहरीम, आप कुछ पूछना चाहेंगे?
Sir, mitochondria is responsible for whatever function it's performing at its own, and nucleus is responsible for whatever the functions are being performed inside the entire cell, right?
Yes. Not only the function of nucleus, but also the function of other organelles, including the mitochondria. But
sir, all the other organelles depend upon nucleus, but mitochondria is a single and independent organelle.
But okay, let me add some more thing. Mitochondria is dependent on nucleus, but not entirely. Certain critical things mitochondria can prepare by itself. ये कोई और नहीं कर सकता. अभी मैंने इसका एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्टर बताना है आपको. जी ईशा, आपका सवाल.
Yes sir, मैंने पूछना था कि आपने, like you mentioned कि they break down proteins into energy, right? So
yes.
Basically,
no,
isn't that similar?
Sugars, sorry. They break down the sugar and convert them into energy. Ji.
Sugar into energy? Okay. So isn't that like similar to the characteristics of the enzymes? Like they work independently and they break down complex molecules into simpler ones now?
No, if you ask me the function of mitochondria, the function of mitochondria is to convert sugar, break down the sugar and produce energy. So now that function required several chemical reactions, several metabolic chemical reactions. To execute those several chemical metabolic reactions, you need enzymes. And enzymes are proteins. So whatever the enzymes and proteins which are required to execute that function, those enzymes and proteins are present within the mitochondria. ठीक हो गया?
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Okay, okay. So if you can see the structure, Tarim, we are done.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the structure of mitochondria, you can see it has a double membranes. Can you see the outer membrane is like a smooth one? It is just a covering outer membrane, and the inner membrane is folded. It is a folded structure that increases the area, that increases the surface area. That is why the inner surface is like in the form of folds. There is a fluid present within the inner membrane. The inner membrane holds a fluid called mitochondrial matrix. And that mitochondrial matrix contains all the enzymes which are required for the execution of metabolic chemical reactions, which ends and results in the production of energy and production of ATP. So everything is here, including the DNA. And that DNA is called as the mitochondrial DNA. Remember the mitochondrial DNA. The important thing about the mitochondrial DNA, before I conclude this session, I'm just sharing my screen, and I want you guys to go through that video which I have made out of a question. It's a very interesting information about mitochondrial DNA. So if you go to if you search the video about the mitochondrial DNA, मैं आपको दिखाता हूँ आपके हिस्से की मैं search कर लेता हूँ. अभी I will going to share my screen as well. Mitochondrial DNA, I'm just searching it for you, okay, Dr. Mustafa. I just wrote, मैंने लिखा let me share my screen. Okay. I want you to look or to see that information, okay? I want you to look and see that information. Can you see that video? I have searched mitochondrial DNA, Dr. Mustafa, something like that, okay? All of you are required to get that information in that video. आप सब लोगों की job है कि आपने इसमें से ये समझना है, and I will be asking the same question after the break, okay? It's like a 5-minute video that is about mitochondrial DNA, and I will ask you the interesting information which I have shared in that video with you, okay? So not today, that's keep it for tomorrow, okay? That's chill. आपको जल्दी देखना पड़ेगा अभी. Just keep it for tomorrow. ठीक है? इसमें एक बड़ी मजे की बात है, सिर्फ मैं आपको इतना बता देता हूँ आपके इंटरेस्ट के लिए, before I conclude this session, that whatever the DNA my cells are carrying and your cells are carrying, or any human cell is carrying, it has 2 types of DNA. The one is a nuclear DNA. Nuclear DNA is present within the nucleus. The other DNA that is present within the mitochondria. अभी हमने देखा ना mitochondria में भी DNA होता है. When we talk about DNA, when we talk with each other about DNA, we talk about the DNA present within the nucleus. हम उस DNA की बात करते हैं जो nucleus में होता है. The DNA present within the nucleus, is contributed 50% by the father and 50% by the mother. So the nuclear DNA I am carrying is 50% came from my father and 50% came from the mother. So it represents a reflection of like 50% contribution of both the parents. But the mitochondrial DNA I am carrying and you are carrying came only from our mothers. The mitochondrial DNA we are carrying, we receive it only from the moms. The father.
Whether it is from मतलब कि male हो या female में हो, दोनों में
कोई भी हो ये वीडियो आपको एक्सप्लेन करेगी ना जो मैंने अभी आपसे शेयर किया. मिसाल के तौर पर, फॉर एग्जांपल, I am carrying the nuclear DNA 50% from my father, 50% from my mom. But my mitochondrial DNA present in every cell is 100% similar with my mom. मेरी mom से. इसी तरह whatever the mitochondrial DNA a lady is carrying, you are carrying, for example, कौन सी लेडी को पिक करें, फॉर एग्जाम्पल खदीजा इज कैरिंग, it is 100% similar mitochondria, similar to her mom, and her mom's mitochondrial DNA is 100% similar to her nano. So the chain goes through the maternal side. So that's the question. The video addressed that interesting fact to you. Okay, let me conclude this session, and I will be back after and also let me conclude some words for the mitochondria. You can guess the importance of mitochondria. Without it, no energy. The energy is required to see the things. The energy is required to move. The energy is required to execute all the chemical reactions. The energy is required to communicate with the other species and other environment. So all that energy is supplied in terms of adenosine triphosphate, and adenosine triphosphate is created within the mitochondria. Okay, is that clear? How you go, Ji?
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है, लेकिन मेरे ख्याल में वो वीडियो में उसका आंसर मिल जाएगा मुझे, तो मैं पूछूं या रहने दो?
आई डोंट नो, आप सवाल करें, मैं बताता हूँ।
सर आपने कहा कि वो जो माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया में जो भी डीएनए होता है वो सारा मदर की तरफ से 100% आता है, तो क्या इसलिए तो नहीं आता क्योंकि हम जो है 10-12 महीने माँ के पेट में ही होते हैं, और उसकी इम्पोर्टेंस मेरे ख्याल में इतनी नहीं होगी जितनी।
नहीं, वो उस वजह से नहीं होता है, वो जिस वजह से होता है वो मैंने वीडियो में बताया है, ठीक है, उसको देखना मजा आएगा आपको। यू विल लव टू नो। देखो ना कितनी मजे की बात है। मुझे लगता है क़यामत वाले दिन इसीलिए माँ के नाम से आवाज देंगे ना, बिकॉज हमारा जो माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल डीएनए, इसमें पॉक्स का कोई किरदार नहीं है। आई एम सॉरी, मैं भी एक डैड हूं, बट आई फील समटाइम्स सॉरी दैट माय किड्स डोंट हैव माय माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल डीएनए एट ऑल। इट ओनली बिलोंग्स।
सर
जी लाइबा
सर, आपने बताया था हमें कि माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया के पास अपना डीएनए और राइबोसोम होता है, तो
जी।
तो मकसद क्या हुआ, क्योंकि माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया तो शुगर्स को आगे जाके रिड्यूस करते हैं, तो आगे अगर डीएनए अगर प्रोटीन भी यूज करते हैं और राइबोसोम, और वो प्रोटीन आगे जाके उसका जो भी फंक्शन होता है वो परफॉर्म करते हैं, तो प्रोटीन्स तो माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया को जरूरत नहीं, उसको तो शुगर्स की जरूरत है, तो फिर प्रोटीन्स क्या काम करती हैं माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया के लिए?
माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया ने जो एनर्जी प्रोड्यूस करनी है, that energy will be produced because of the chemical reactions, metabolic chemical reactions. उन chemical reactions को execute करने के लिए we need enzymes, and those enzymes are proteins.
Okay, understood.
जिंदाबाद।
मेरा एक क्वेश्चन था।
कौन आया? आजा उसामा।
सर ये मतलब
समझ जोर से।
मेरा माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल डीएनए जो है मदर की साइड से है, उनका उनकी मदर की साइड से आया, तो वैसे तो चेन जाके जगह आ रही ह्यूमंस की शायद।
मुझे आपका सवाल समझ में नहीं आया, मैं आप दोबारा बोलें।
सर ये जो डीएनए है माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया का, ये मदर की साइड से आता है, तो फिर उनकी मदर की साइड से आता है, तो ये अगर चेन लिंक करें पीछे जाके, तो इट माइट बी जस्ट वन, लाइक सबका भी एक सेम हो सकता है, इसमें कोई मतलब।
You are right. If you go back, you can trace back generations and generations and generations and generations. और मैं आपको बताऊं कि ये फोरेंसिक्स में इस्तेमाल होता है, बहुत ज्यादा सेंसिटिव है, यानी कि ये सिर्फ स्पेसिफिक है मॉम की साइड से।
सर ये सबका सेम नहीं होना चाहिए?
नहीं, मैं आपको बताऊंगा क्यों अलग होता है। क्योंकि ये इसलिए अलग होता है, देखो याद रखें कि ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ सेंचुरीज डीएनए में चेंज आता है। तो एक बात होता है कि डिफरेंट जो हमारी चेन्स हैं ह्यूमंस की, खानदान है, फैमिलीज हैं, उनमें सेंचुरीज के बाद तब्दीली तो नेचुरली आएगी जीन्स में। उसी तरह माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल डीएनए में भी चेंज आएगा। लेकिन अगर फर्ज करो मियाँ बीवी जो हैं, या फादर मॉम एंड डैड जो हैं, दे आर क्लोजली रिलेटेड, दे आर लाइक कजन्स, फर्स्ट कजन्स, तो हो सकता है उनका माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल डीएनए भी बहुत करीब हो, बहुत पास, दे आर फ्रॉम द सेम फैमिली। ठीक है, सबका सेम नहीं होना चाहिए, सबकी मॉम्स का सेम, क्योंकि सबकी मॉम्स का अपनी मॉम से है, उनका अपनी मॉम से है। व्हेन यू गो बैक, दीज पीपल विल गो, यू नो, मे बी हम में से किसी का ओरिजिन वो हो सऊदी मिडिल ईस्ट हो, किसी का ओरिजिन जो है वो सेंट्रल एशियन हो, किसी का ओरिजिन जो है वो इंडियन हो, किसी का ओरिजिन जो है वो यूरोपियन हो, सो लाइक इट्स क्वाइट डिफरेंट। लेकिन ये इंटरेस्टिंग है कि आप कई जनरेशन तक इसको ट्रेस कर सकते हैं। ओके, सो दैट्स इट फॉर दिस सेशन। आई एम गोइंग टू स्टॉप राइट नाउ।